The day my daughter left me off the guest list for my own grandson's christening was the same day she and her husband decided my farm had finally become more useful than I was. I want you to sit with that for a moment, family. Not my truck, not a loan, not a few $1,000s to help them through a rough patch. They wanted the land, the house, the barn, the pond, the pecan trees my late wife planted with her own hands, and the little white porch where I had rocked that girl to sleep when she was too small to know the difference between thunder and her father's heartbeat. And the part that still tightens something in my chest, even now, is that I almost let them make me feel guilty for saying no. My name is Walter Harlan. I'm 68 years old, born and raised outside Macon, Georgia, where the summers sit on your shoulders like a wet quilt and the evenings smell like cut grass, red clay, and somebody frying something 2 roads over. I spent most of my life building homes for other people, then came home to the same 4-2-acre farm my wife, Ruth, and I bought when we were young enough to believe a mortgage was just another kind of adventure. Ruth has been gone 9 years now. Cancer took her in the cruel, quiet way cancer does, stealing ounces before it steals whole days. After she passed, the farmhouse got too loud. That may not make sense unless you've lost someone, but empty rooms can shout at you. Her mug by the sink, her gardening gloves on the back porch, her Bible with the ribbon still tucked in Corinthians. Everywhere I looked, something was saying, she was here, she was here, she was here. So I moved into a smaller brick ranch house closer to town and kept the farm. I couldn't sell it. Not then, maybe not ever. That farm was the story of us. My daughter, Caroline, grew up there. She learned to ride a bike in the gravel driveway, skinned both knees under the magnolia tree, cried through algebra at the kitchen table, and left for college in a car I bought used but polished so hard it looked new. After Ruth died, Caroline became all I had left of the life before silence. I paid for her school. I paid for her first apartment deposit. I helped with her wedding to a man named Trent Hollis, a man who smiled like a banker and hugged like he was checking for loose change. Trent sold insurance for a while, then got into investment opportunities, which is a phrase men use when they don't want to admit they're unemployed with nicer shoes. I didn't hate Trent. I want to be fair about that. Hate takes energy, and by the time I was 60, I had learned to budget mine carefully, but I never trusted the way he said the word asset. Everything was an asset to Trent. A house wasn't a home, it was equity. A truck wasn't transportation, it was depreciating value. A family dinner wasn't a family dinner, it was networking. Ruth would have seen through him in 10 minutes. I took a little longer because fathers, brothers, and sisters, fathers are sometimes slow where daughters are concerned. The christening was on a Sunday morning in April. I know because the dogwoods were blooming, and I had spent that whole week expecting a call from Caroline. My grandson, Ethan, was 6 months old. I had only held him twice, not because I didn't want to, because every time I asked to come by, there was a reason. He's napping, Dad. We're trying to get him on a schedule, Dad. Trent's parents are here this weekend, Dad. Maybe next week, Dad. Then Sunday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table eating toast with peach preserves when my phone buzzed. A picture popped up on Facebook. There was Caroline standing in front of a church in Savannah, wearing a pale blue dress, holding Ethan in a little white gown. Trent stood beside her, one hand on her waist, smiling that smooth, clean smile of his. His parents were there. His sister was there. Friends I recognized from Caroline's wedding were there. There must have been 60 people in those pictures. 60 people. And not one empty seat saved for the child's grandfather. I stared at that picture until the toast in my hand went cold. The caption said, "Blessed to celebrate our son Ethan with the family who shows up for us." The family who shows up. That line did something to me I still don't have a proper name for. It didn't feel like anger at first. It felt like stepping wrong off a curb and realizing there's no ground under your foot. I put the phone down, picked it back up, zoomed in like maybe I was hidden somewhere in the corner, some old man in a gray jacket I had forgotten being. But no, I wasn't there because I had not been invited. A man can be lonely and still have pride. That morning, mine and my loneliness sat across from each other at the kitchen table and didn't say a word. Caroline called 3 days later. "Dad, I know you probably saw the pictures. I did. It was really small. Just immediate family. 60 people is immediate family now? She went quiet. Then she sighed in that way adult children sigh when they want you to feel old and unreasonable. Dad, please don't make this about you. That was when I knew this wasn't an apology. It was damage control. I won't, I said. Congratulations. Ethan looked beautiful. He's getting so big. I can see that. Another pause. We'll come visit soon. All right. I hung up before my voice could betray me. Now, family, I want you to understand something. I didn't yell. I didn't call back. I didn't write a dramatic comment under the pictures. I didn't ask why Trent's golf buddy was family enough to stand in a church with my grandson, but the man who paid for Caroline's braces, college, wedding flowers, and first car wasn't. I just sat there and let the truth arrive in its own time. And it did. Over the next few weeks, Caroline started calling more. At first, I thought maybe guilt had finally found her. She asked how I was feeling, asked if I was taking my blood pressure medicine, asked if I still drove out to the farm alone. Dad, you really shouldn't be handling all that land by yourself. I'm not handling all of it. Mostly just keeping an eye on things. But you're 68. I'm aware. I was there when it happened. She gave a small laugh, but it wasn't relaxed. Trent just worries. We both do. There it was. Trent worries. That man didn't worry about me when I spent 3 hours in the emergency room with a kidney stone and Caroline texted me the next morning saying, sorry, just saw this. He didn't worry when the water heater burst at the farm and I spent 2 days getting the place dried out. But suddenly, after a christening I wasn't invited to, Trent was worried about me living alone and owning land. I have built houses for 41 years. I've dealt with developers, inspectors, bankers, men who say, trust me, right before they hand you paper you'd better read twice. I know when somebody is laying foundation before they build the lie on top of it. Caroline's calls became softer, sweeter, more frequent. She sent pictures of Ethan. She asked if I wanted to FaceTime. She told me he had Ruth's eyes, which he did, and I hated that she knew exactly where to press. Then, one Friday afternoon in May, she said, Dad, Trent and I thought maybe we could come by Sunday after church. We want to talk about something as a family. As a family, I repeated. Yes. I looked out my kitchen window at the azaleas Ruth had planted years ago. They were blooming hard that spring, like they had something to prove. All right, I said. Come after lunch. They arrived in Trent's black SUV at 1:15. Caroline got out first, carrying Ethan's diaper bag, but not Ethan. That told me plenty. Trent had decided this wasn't a baby visit. This was business. He stepped onto my porch wearing khakis, loafers, and a navy blazer on a Georgia afternoon warm enough to melt butter in the shade. Walter, he said, reaching for my hand. Not Dad. Not Mr. Harlan. Walter. Trent. Caroline kissed my cheek. She smelled like expensive shampoo and nervousness. We sat in the living room. I had sweet tea on the table because I was raised right, even when people come to rob you politely. Trent complimented the house, the yard, the framed photo of Ruth above the mantel. Caroline looked at that photo a little too long, then looked away. For 15 minutes, we talked about nothing. Church, weather, Ethan teething, the Braves, Trent's new consulting work. Every word was a porch board creaking before the break. Finally, Trent leaned forward. Walter, Caroline and I have been thinking about the farm. I nodded once. It's a beautiful place, he said, but it's just sitting there. Land tends to do that. He smiled like I had made a joke instead of a warning. Sure, of course. What I mean is, with the market where it is, and with your age, and with Caroline being your only child, it may be time to make a practical family decision. Caroline stared at her hands. What practical family decision? Trent glanced at her. She took a breath. Dad, she said, we want to move back closer to family. I almost laughed. She lived 2 hours away, and had still managed to exclude me from my grandson's christening. The farm would be perfect for Ethan, she continued. He could grow up with land, with roots, with the kind of childhood I had. I looked at her then, really looked. For a second, I saw the little girl in pigtails running barefoot through Ruth's garden. Then Trent opened his mouth and saved me from sentiment. "We've spoken to a lender," he said. "There are tax advantages if you transfer the property now instead of waiting. We'd preserve the family legacy, and you'd be relieved of the burden." "The burden," I said. "The upkeep," he corrected quickly. "The responsibility." Caroline's voice dropped soft, rehearsed soft. "Dad, you know it's supposed to be mine someday. I'm your daughter. You owe me the chance to keep it in the family." There it was. Not, "Can we talk?" Not, "Would you consider?" Not, "I'm sorry. I hurt you. You owe me." The room went quiet enough that I could hear the ceiling fan clicking. Ruth used to tell me to fix that. I never did. That day, I was grateful for the sound. Trent watched me with the careful stillness of a man waiting for a signature. Caroline's eyes shined, but I had raised her. I knew the difference between tears and tools. I picked up my glass of tea, took one slow sip, set it down, and said, "Let me call somebody." Caroline exhaled. Just a little, but I heard it. She thought she had won. "I knew you'd understand," she whispered. I stood up. "Stay here." I walked down the hallway into my small office, closed the door, and rested my hand on the desk Ruth and I had bought at an estate sale in 1989. Then I picked up my phone and called a woman named Martha Quinn. Martha had been my attorney for 26 years. She had hair the color of steel wool, eyes like a hawk, and the patience of a locked gate. "Walter," she said, "is this the day?" I looked at the closed door. I could hear Trent murmuring in the living room, low and confident. "Yes," I said. "It's the day. Did they ask for it?" "Word for word." "Then come in tomorrow morning. I'll have the trust papers ready." I closed my eyes. "Thank you, Martha." "Don't thank me yet," she said. "You still have to live through the part where they learn you're not as lonely as they hoped." When I came back to the living room, Trent stood up too quickly. "Everything good?" "Fine," I said. "Martha wants a few days to review options." Caroline smiled. "That's good, Dad. That's really good." I nodded. "Yes, it is. But here's what my daughter did not know." She did not know that 6 weeks before she stood in my living room asking for Ruth's farm, I had already sat across from Martha Quinn with a folder full of documents. She did not know that the morning after I saw those christening pictures, I drove out to the farm, unlocked the old barn, and sat on a hay bale until sunset thinking about a boy named Luis Mendoza. She did not know that the farm had already been promised to someone else. And she absolutely did not know that Trent's little speech about family legacy had arrived too late to save him. Luis Mendoza was 17 when he first came to work for me. This was back in 2004, maybe 2005. I had a crew framing a house outside Warner Robins, and one of my men brought this skinny kid along, said he needed work and didn't mind sweating. Luis didn't talk much, worked hard, showed up early, never complained. One day, I caught him eating peanut butter crackers for lunch behind the lumber stack. Not a sandwich, not leftovers. Crackers from a gas station. I asked where he lived. He lied. I knew he lied because I have been poor, family. Real poor. Poor recognizes poor the way old dogs recognize thunder. A week later, I found out he was sleeping in an old Buick behind a closed tire shop. Mother gone, father gone. Foster, placement, fell apart. Too old for people to feel sorry for, too young to know how to save himself. I brought him to the farm that Saturday. Ruth made chicken and dumplings. She did not ask him a single question that would embarrass him. She just put food in front of him and said, "Eat, baby, you can talk after." He cried into that bowl. Ruth pretended not to notice. That was one of her gifts. Luis stayed in our guest room for 3 months. Then, another boy came. Then a girl who had aged out of foster care and was living in her car while taking classes at the technical college. Ruth said, "Walter, the Lord keeps sending them because we keep opening the door." We never became an official anything. We were just a house with extra plates, a barn where kids could learn to fix things, a patch of land where somebody could breathe without being watched like a problem. After Ruth died, I tried to keep it going quietly. A few scholarships, some tool sets, rent deposits, grocery cards, nothing public. I didn't need my name on a building. I just needed to know some kid had a key to a door. Then Luis came back into my life. Grown man now. Wife. 2 daughters, owns a small HVAC company in Perry. He came to see me the month before Ethan's christening. We sat on the farm porch, the one Ruth loved, and he said, "Mr. Harlan, do you know what this place could be? Expensive to mow?" He laughed. "A training home. For kids aging out. Not charity exactly. Work, trade skills, carpentry, plumbing, electrical basics, cooking, budgeting. A place where they don't just get a bed. They get a start." I looked out over the pasture. The barn roof needed work. The guest cottage had good bones. The old equipment shed could become a classroom. Ruth's garden could feed half a dozen people if somebody loved it right. What would something like that take? I asked. Luis looked nervous then. "Land," he said. "Mostly land." That was the first time I felt Ruth in that place without the pain attached. So I called Martha. We built it carefully, not reckless, not angry. Not some old man burning down his own future to teach his daughter manners. I kept my retirement accounts. I kept my house in town. I set aside medical reserves, because I am 68, not stupid. The farm would go into an irrevocable trust, managed by a non-profit board, after a life estate for me, meaning I could use it, visit it, and oversee the transition while I lived. The program would be called Ruth's Table Trade House, because Ruth believed nobody should learn life hungry. Luis would direct the training program. Martha would sit on the board for the first 5 years. A portion of lease income from 2 small rental properties I owned would fund maintenance. Clean, legal. Boring in all the ways good plans need to be boring. By the time Caroline asked for the farm, the documents were drafted. Not signed yet, but close. Her words finished the work. My hesitation had started. "You owe me." I signed the trust papers the following Thursday at Martha's office. Rain tapped the windows the whole morning. Not dramatic rain, just steady Georgia rain, the kind that makes the world smell honest. Martha slid each page toward me and explained every clause. I appreciated that. She didn't treat me like some grieving fool. She treated me like a man making a decision. When I signed the final page, my hand shook once. Martha saw it but said nothing. "You all right?" she asked after the notary left. I looked at my signature. Walter James Harlan. Same name I had written on Caroline's school forms, mortgage papers, Ruth's hospital documents, funeral checks. "I'm not sure all right is the word," I said, "but I'm clear. Clear is better than angry." "I'm angry too." "Good," she said, closing the folder. "Anger tells you where the wound is. It doesn't get to hold the pen." I drove to the farm afterward. Rain had softened the driveway, and my truck tires pressed deep into the red clay. I walked through the house room by room. The kitchen still had Ruth's yellow curtains. I had meant to take them down years ago, and never could. The pantry door still had Caroline's height marks penciled along the frame. Age 6, age 9, age 12, when she got tall, all at once, and Ruth cried about it after Caroline went to bed. I stood there a long time. That was the hard part. Family. Not telling Trent no. Men like Trent are easy once you stop being polite. The hard part was admitting that the little pencil marks on the door did not obligate me to hand the whole farm to a grown woman who forgot I was family until she wanted acreage. I touched the mark labeled Caroline 12 and whispered, "I loved you right." Maybe I needed to hear it from myself. 2 weeks later, Caroline called. "Dad?" Trent was wondering if Martha had everything ready. "We're trying to plan school districts and financing. Come by Saturday morning," I said. 10 o'clock. Martha will be here. "Oh," she said, pleased. "At your house?" "At the farm." That made her pause. "The farm?" "Yes." Her voice brightened. "Okay, we'll be there." I hung up and sat very still. There are moments in life when you know the bridge behind you is gone. You may not have burned it. Maybe time did. Maybe neglect did. Maybe somebody else took a match to it and blamed the weather. But gone is gone. Saturday came clear and hot. I arrived at the farm at 8:30. Luis was already there, walking the barn with 2 contractors, pointing at beams, making notes. Martha arrived at 9:15, with her leather briefcase and a face that could sour milk. "You ready?" she asked. "No." "Good, means you understand it." At 10 sharp, Trent's SUV rolled up the driveway. Caroline stepped out wearing a cream-colored dress and sunglasses too large for the occasion. Trent carried a folder under one arm, probably full of numbers he thought would impress me. He looked around the property like a man touring a purchase. "Beautiful morning," he said. "It is," I replied. Caroline came toward me for a hug. I let her. I'm still her father. That is the part people who love simple revenge stories don't understand. Your heart doesn't stop recognizing your child just because your mind has finally caught up. Martha stood by the porch steps. "Martha Quinn," she said. Trent reached out. "Trent Hollis. Good to finally meet. I'm excited we can get this done in a way that benefits everybody." Martha looked at his hand for half a second before shaking it. "Let's go inside." We sat at the old dining room table Ruth had refinished herself. Caroline sat where she used to sit as a girl. Trent sat beside her, opening his folder. Martha placed one slim stack of papers in the center of the table. Trent smiled. "So, are these the transfer documents?" "Yes," Martha said. Caroline's eyes flicked to mine. Martha turned the first page toward them. Trent read 3 lines before his smile broke. I watched it happen, the confidence leaving his face in stages. First, confusion. Then, calculation. Then panic trying to dress itself as anger. "What is Ruth's table trade house?" he asked. Caroline leaned over. "What?" Martha said. "It is the nonprofit trust that now holds the future interest in this property, along with operating funds and governance structure for a residential trade training program." Trent stared at her. "That's not what we discussed." "You and I have discussed nothing," Martha said. He turned to me. "Walter, what is this? The farm is not being transferred to you." Caroline's face went pale in a way that reminded me of Ruth, and that almost hurt worse than anything. "Dad?" I kept my voice even. "I signed the documents Thursday. I retain use of the farm while I'm alive. After that, it becomes Ruth's table trade house. Luis Mendoza will run the program. Young adults leaving foster care will live here, learn trades here, and start their lives here." Trent stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "You can't just do that." "I can," I said. "I did. We had an agreement." "No, Trent. You had an expectation." Caroline's eyes filled. "Dad, why would you do this to me?" That sentence, Lord, that sentence. I looked at my daughter, sitting in the house where her mother had loved her, and I felt the old weakness rise. The father weakness. The one that says, fix it, soften it, take the blame, make your child stop hurting even if she is the one holding the knife. Martha looked at me, but did not speak. I reached down beside my chair and lifted the wooden recipe box Ruth had kept on the kitchen counter for 30 years. The corners were worn smooth. The lid had a little painted rooster on it. Caroline recognized it immediately. "Mom's recipe box?" "Yes." Her tears changed then. Became realer, maybe. Or maybe I wanted them to. I set it in front of her. "Open it." She hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside were no recipes. I had moved those years ago. Inside were photographs, letters, receipts, and a folded church bulletin from the Sunday Ethan was christened. Caroline picked up the bulletin first. Her mouth tightened. "I wasn't invited," I said. "But a woman from your church mailed that to me. She thought I must have been sick." Caroline lowered her eyes. Trent muttered, "Walter, that has nothing to do with—" "Sit down," Martha said. Maybe it was her voice. Maybe it was the look I gave him. But he sat. Caroline picked up a photograph. It showed a skinny teenage boy sitting at our kitchen table in 2005, crying over chicken and dumplings, while Ruth's hand rested beside his bowl, not touching him, just near enough that he knew someone was there. "That's Louis," I said. "He was 17. He was living in a car. Your mother fed him before she asked him a single question." Caroline stared at the picture. "She did that for a lot of kids," I said. "Some you met, some you never noticed. Because children who are trying not to be a burden get very good at being invisible." She picked up receipts. Next. Grocery cards, tool purchases, rent deposits, tuition payments at Central Georgia Technical College, work boots, utility deposits, small checks, large checks, years of them. "What is all this?" she whispered. "Your mother and I opening the door." I leaned forward. You said I owed you the farm because you are my daughter. But this farm was never just dirt and timber. It was your mother's table. It was shelter. It was second chances. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that because I was waiting for you to come home and love it for the right reasons. Caroline started crying then, quietly. No performance, no hand to forehead, just tears falling onto Ruth's old dining table. I wish I could tell you that didn't move me. It did. But moving me is not the same as changing what is right. I took out the final envelope and slid it across to her. Her name was written on it in my handwriting. Read it. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter and one photograph. The photograph was of Ruth standing in the garden, holding a basket of tomatoes, laughing at something outside the frame. Caroline touched the edge of it like it might disappear. The letter said what I had needed to say without letting her interrupt me. Caroline, I have loved you from the first second I knew you existed. I loved you through fevers, bad grades, slammed doors, heartbreaks, your mother's funeral, and every quiet day after. Nothing in these papers changes that. But love is not ownership. Blood is not a deed. I am your father, not your bank, and this farm is not a prize for remembering me when you need land. Your mother believed a table was holy when it had room for someone hungry. I am giving her table back to the kind of people she never turned away. When you are ready to know me as your father and not as your inheritance, I will be on the porch, Dad. Caroline covered her mouth. Trent, God bless him, still tried. Men like that can watch a house burn and ask if the fireplace is for sale. This is emotional manipulation, he said. Caroline, don't fall for this. Walter, there may be grounds to challenge capacity or undue influence. Martha smiled then, and I had never seen anything less friendly. Mr. Harlan was evaluated, advised independently, and documented over several weeks. There is no undue influence. There is no capacity issue. There is also no promise, contract, or written agreement with you. What exists is a properly executed estate plan. Trent's jaw worked. This is insane, he said. You're giving away $1 million farm to strangers. I stood up. No, I said. I'm giving it to kids who know the value of a door opening. Caroline looked at me. Dad, I made a mistake. Yes, I said softly. You did. I should have invited you. Yes, I let Trent. No, I said, and it hurt me to say it. Don't put all of it on him. He may have drawn the map, but you walked it. She flinched. Good. Some truths should sting. That's how you know they got through. Trent grabbed his folder. Come on, Caroline. We're leaving. For the first time that morning, she did not move when he told her to. He looked back. Caroline. She kept staring at Ruth's picture. Can I keep this? She asked me. The photo? She nodded. Yes. She slipped it into the envelope with the letter. Then she stood, not quickly, not dramatically. Just like somebody whose knees had remembered they had to carry consequences. At the door, Trent turned to me. You'll regret this when you need family. I looked past him at my daughter. I needed family at Ethan's christening. He had nothing for that. They left in silence. His SUV kicked dust down the driveway like it was angry too. I stood on the porch until the dust settled. Martha came beside me. You did well, she said. I don't feel well. That's different. Luis walked up from the barn, careful, like he didn't want to intrude. Everything okay, Mr. Harlan? I looked at him. Grown man, good man, father now. A boy who had once cried into Ruth's chicken and dumplings and now wanted to build doors for kids who had none. No, I said. But it will be. 3 months later, Ruth's table opened its first cottage. Not officially, not with ribbon cutting and cameras. I didn't want that. We had 6 young people, ages 18 to 21, 2 staff members, Luis, Martha, me, and a potluck supper under the pecan trees. The barn had been cleaned, wired, painted, and divided into workshop space. The guest cottage had new beds. Ruth's garden had been turned over and planted again. Somebody fixed the ceiling fan in the farmhouse kitchen, which made me laugh harder than it should have. One girl named Tasha stood in the doorway of the cottage for nearly a full minute before stepping inside. Luis asked if she was okay. She said, I never had a key before. That was it, family. That was the whole farm right there. Not market value, not acreage, not tax strategy. A key in a young woman's hand and a door that opened. Caroline called me 2 weeks after that. I almost didn't answer. Then I thought about the line in my own letter. When you are ready to know me as your father. Hello? Dad. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Caroline. I'm not calling about the farm. All right. I left Trent. I closed my eyes. Not from joy. Divorce is not a touchdown. It is a house fire, even when the house needed burning. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I am, she said. Then she cried. I let her. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is not rush to clean up tears. Someone finally earned. After a while, she said, he wanted me to push you. He said you'd give in if I made it emotional. And what did you say? I said he was right. That honesty hit me harder than any excuse could have. Thank you for telling me. I hated myself the minute I said you owe me. I heard it come out and I knew Mom would have been ashamed. I looked toward Ruth's photo on my mantel. She would have been disappointed, I said. Ashamed is a heavy word. I don't deserve you making it lighter. No, but I'm still your father. She was quiet. Can I bring Ethan to see you? I had waited months to hear that. Longer, maybe, but I had learned something by then. Wanting a thing badly does not mean you accept it on any terms. Yes, I said, but not as a peace offering. Not as bait. Not because you feel guilty for a week. If you bring him because I'm his grandfather. I understand. I hope you do. The next Saturday, Caroline drove out to my little brick house in town. No Trent, no folder, no performance. Just my daughter, tired around the eyes, carrying my grandson on her hip. Ethan looked at me like babies look at old men they are deciding whether to trust. Hey there, I said. He reached for my glasses. I let him take them. Caroline laughed through a sob, and for a second, I heard Ruth in it. We are not fixed. Don't misunderstand me. People love to hear that one apology repairs 10 years of slow damage. It doesn't. Trust is not a porch light you switch back on. It is a field you replant after drought. Some things grow, some don't. You still have to get up and tend it honestly. Caroline volunteers at Ruth's table twice a month now. The first time she came, Tasha taught her how to patch drywall, and I stood in the barn doorway pretending not to enjoy that as much as I did. Ethan runs under the pecan trees when she brings him, and sometimes I catch Caroline watching him the way I used to watch her, with love and fear standing so close together they cast one shadow. As for Trent, last I heard, he had found another investment group and another blazer. I wish him exactly as much peace as he has earned. I still drive out to the farm every Wednesday morning. I drink coffee on the porch. I talk to Ruth like she's just inside the kitchen, pretending not to listen. The place sounds different now. Young voices. Hammering. Laughter. Somebody burning toast. Life, in other words. And I have learned this late, but not too late. A child can inherit your eyes, your stubbornness, your best years, and your last name, but they do not inherit the right to empty you. I did not give that farm away because I stopped loving my daughter. I gave it away because I finally understood what Ruth knew all along. Love is a table, not a transaction. Family is who shows up when there is nothing to gain, and a father is not a bank with a heartbeat. My name is Walter Harlan. I'm 68 years old. I built a life from red clay, sore hands, borrowed money, and one good woman who believed every hungry soul deserved a chair. My daughter once told me I owed her my farm. I didn't argue. I opened the door for somebody who needed it more. Sometimes the kindest legacy we leave is not property, but a door opened at the right moment. Walter learned that love can stay gentle while still holding boundaries, and that family grows stronger when gratitude, kindness, and respect are chosen every day. When we protect our peace without closing our hearts, goodness still finds room at the table.